How do you see this playing out, and is he going to be able to do it?
It's a difficult one really to call at this point in time, because the reason Netanyahu has been given the opportunity to form the government is he was able to demonstrate a larger backing in the parliament than, than the blue and white party. But the key piece is really going to be whether he's going to be able to get the necessary kind of support. And there seem to be, ideological differences. The natural thing would have been for these two parties to come together. But the fact that you've got these charges against Netanyahu and how this is being felt by many of the parties involved, that's going to remain a challenge, and it might, be something that, Netanyahu is going to have to battle against to be able to prove his maturity. But the other challenge then remains is if he's not able to do it, is the country then ready to probably go in for another round of elections? So I think they might want to avoid it, and you will find that either Netanyahu most likely or somebody else will be able to push through and form a government.
Certainly still a lot of uncertainty there. Sanjay, I also wanted to ask you about what's happening in Egypt too, because the crackdown that we're seeing on behalf of President Sisi here has certainly caused markets to slide. Major protests also planned for tomorrow. How are you reading the situation in Egypt, and is this a market you want to avoid right now?
Egypt, again, I think when it kind of, a few years back came out of literally some of the turmoil, it had an enormous amount of promise, and you continue to kind of see that in some momentum. Having said that, some of the metrics aren't still working in favor of the market. The poverty levels are, estimated to be higher than a few years ago. At the same time, the non-oil sector investments haven't really taken off as we expected. And you are starting to see nervousness from the global investment community about Egypt. So the key piece still remains for Egypt is whether we are able to demonstrate a robust governance outlook for the market to invite and welcome these investments in. But at the same time, I think on the ground, they probably need to look at some structural aspects in terms of, generating employment and income levels. Because when you look at the streets, it appears like a lot of what you call the average citizens out there who are protesting about, the situations they are in right now.
What about the Egypt market then? Because we have seen some considerable declines over the last week or so. Does that present an opportunity, or is it just too risky given the political instability that we're seeing and the demands of these protesters essentially trying to seek some sort of regime change?
I think at this point in time, there is a kind of wait and watch approach the investors are taking. The reason being, yes, it does look like an opportunity, and you're seeing pretty much the gains of the entire year in Egypt market wiped out so far. But having said that, the idea really is, will the government be able to take the necessary steps in the coming weeks and put this to rest and get back on its growth agenda? So we have seen market volatility in Egypt during this year, but essentially this time you've had the sharp decline and pretty much wiped out all the gains of this year. So I think the investors are still hopeful about it, but the real measure is going to be in the next few weeks in terms of how the government steps in to assuage the concerns of the citizens.